Hello and welcome to the Emperor's New Podcast, where I explore every corner of the Emperor's New Groove franchise. Today I am joined by voice actress and writer Lucia Lobosvilla to talk about representation in the Emperor's New Groove.
Bless you for saying my name correct on the first try. That rarely
Yeah.
happens. It means a lot to me.
Yeah. Well, I've listened to a few podcasts with you on it to make sure.
You did your research. You were prepared.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
So tell us a little bit first about like what your experience with the Emperor's New Groove is.
So I'm Peruvian, and the Emperor's New Groove, of course, is based the people that are supposed to be the Incas, right? Kind of only a name, obviously, since it's so anachronistic. I loved the film. I was just in the right age bracket where, I was getting kind of cynical about Disney films, and Emperor's New Groove was funny, and it was like an anti-Disney film where it made fun of a lot of its own tropes and didn't take itself seriously. I thought it was hilarious. My father, on the other hand, when he was still alive, was not a fan. And I can understand that it didn't feel to him like it was Peruvian at all. He was like, Chicha's the name of a drink. Why is that the name of this woman? Pacha, like a Pacha. Like, why would that be his name? Cusco's a capital. Okay, at least that one kind of makes sense. He was just so perplexed. And he hated, like, the fast food scene made him the angriest, because he was like, there's nothing Peruvian about any of this. Not the food they're eating. Like the disgust at the pill bug. My dad was so upset. He was like, what is this?
Yeah. It's definitely from what research I have done on people's reaction to it. It seems very divisive. It kind of split down the middle of people really enjoying it and people saying, "Oh, this is just nothing like my culture. I don't like it." So it's really fascinating seeing that sort of divide in reactions to it, I think.
Absolutely. I think that this reaction would be less polarizing if there was more Peruvian representation. Because if there was more Peruvian representation, you wouldn't care about a silly one-time comedy movie. But when this is like the only Peruvian representation you ever see, it's upsetting to see yourself presented this way. So I can understand why it upset him so much versus kid me, who wasn't carrying all of that cultural baggage yet. I was too young. So I was just having a great time. I was like, yeah, llamas, legit. Peruvians like llama.
Yeah. Have we run out of stuff to talk? No.
No, I am so excited to talk to you about this, actually. I think that something really fascinating here is knowing that this was originally supposed to be a way more traditional Disney musical. Which the music sounded fantastic. And I know a lot of people are sad that we're never going to see that version. While still a lot of people are such huge fans of the one we got, what I am more interested about is not to relitigate something that already passed, or arguing about whether Kingdom of the Sun or Emperor's New Groove would have been better. I'm interested in what is happening with this IP now with the fan base. With like you and your projects and where you want to take this world. Do you want to continue this tone? And if you do want to continue this cartoony, anachronistic, silly tone, what are you trying to say with it the original movie didn't say? Because I think if you're giving yourself the flexibility to play very fast and loose with this culture and even the reality of your film, that freedom should be building somewhere, right? What are you gonna do with that? So I want to hear about it. What are you gonna do now that you've given yourself this playground?
I don't know. Well, one idea which you know about. I don't know if I should tell people that. If not, you can tell me and I'll delete this, that you are involved with helping me write a project.
I will consider myself a cultural consultant.
I'm making a what I call a requel, which is a sequel, but also it's kind of has remake elements that sort of like takes us beyond because the Emperor's New Groove always breaks the fourth wall. So the idea is, what if what's behind the fourth wall, and if they're remaking it, how would the characters react to that, and what kind of journey could they go on at all the meantime exploring Cusco, how Cusco has changed over the years as a person.
I think
And at the same time,
Wait.
poking fun at Disney remake tropes and stuff as well.
Oh, I should ask, do you need me to be recording this on my end or are you recording it all on yours?
I'm recording it on my end.
Okay, okay. No, I think that's a great direction to take it because it would be so easy to just make a plain sequel like the
Yeah.
TV show did, right?
Yeah.
But like the TV show, love it or hate it, I know that's also super polarizing.
Yeah.
Also had the same problem of having to kind of rehash Cusco's arc because
Yeah.
there wasn't anywhere to take him. I think what you are proposing, where it's kind of a Who Framed Roger Rabbit sort of thing, where Cusco is a consultant in a movie being made about his life, is such a perfect opportunity to see the ways in which he's changed and be forced to reflect on the person he was, as well as still having that kind of diva attitude still in him of not being happy he's being represented properly.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of room to play with that, but I think that you actually have an opportunity here to address the initial complaint we were talking about, right? Cusco not feeling properly represented by a
Yeah.
remake is
Yeah.
echoing the frustrations of Peruvians that don't feel properly represented by the movie. And I
Yeah.
think that's cool. I think
Yeah.
thematically that works.
Yeah. I didn't even think of that, and but
I
yeah.
that's why I liked it when you first told me about it. I was like, that's so smart. Not only is it funny, and not only does it continue that kind of like fourth wall breaking, it's not a real, real show sort of thing, but yeah, what a great way to explore that frustration of real Peruvians through Cusco's own diva, you gotta do me right kind of
Yeah.
way. Even if he's gonna retcon history a bit and be like, no, I was better than that. And you're like, bro, no, you weren't.
Yeah.
And I think it gives his character more opportunity for growth and self-awareness, like you said, rather than having to rehash the same arc he already had.
Yeah.
What research have you like put into it? I'm really curious. Like, do you know anything about like Peruvian mythology at all?
I do. I know some. Yeah, the movie did get me actually really interested in that, so I have done some research. I'm not an expert by any means, obviously.
That's okay. Anyone who gets interested in my culture, that makes me happy.
I know about uh, I know about Viracocha. I know about the creator god. I know about Inti the sun god. I know about Inti
Inti, that's the
Raymi.
one you really got to know is Inti.
Yeah, and of course I know some of the original movie, the original idea for Kingdom of the Sun had a bit more to do with the mythology as well. With the sun god and Supai, and still it was a Disney version of it, but so it wasn't entirely accurate to the culture, but it was a bit
Even
more
so,
focused on the mythology and stuff. Whereas the biggest Peruvian culture aspect of the current movie is basically llamas play a big part. That's basically it.
llamas in like a headdress that Cusco wears, and that's
Yeah,
it.
Cusco wears a headdress, and the front of the palace looks like a tombie. Um, that's about it.
Yep.
Even the TV show had a little bit more than that than the movie did, I think. I know they referenced Viracocha once in the TV show. Um, but his mask looked like but they made him look like Inti for some reason. It was
And for
weird.
some reason, it's still cool though that you recognize that. That makes me happy. What's
Yeah,
interesting is that Peru, as I know it, obviously would have been different then because I'm part Chinese,
yeah,
part Arabic. Uh, a lot of us are because obviously the Spaniards had been conquered by the Moors, so they brought
yeah,
Arabic blood with them. And then when slavery was made illegal, never should have been legal, but when it was made illegal
yeah.
and you couldn't exploit Black people anymore, they responded by importing Asian immigrants,
Ugh.
primarily Chinese, to do the labor for cheap that they could exploit. But because of this, Peru is very, very influenced by Chinese and Japanese, though primarily Chinese culture. Like their former president was even Fujimori, a Japanese name.
Yeah,
Um, and our cuisine reflects this. Like our food has so much Chinese influence. We have a whole subsection of our cuisine called chifa. And I think it's interesting because I have to separate all of those elements of my culture I grew up with to focus on the indigenous element. I do have Incan ancestry, but of
yeah,
course, most of my life I was so focused on the blended and especially the Chinese culture always fascinated me.
yeah,
So, something that I'm looking forward to is kind of reconnecting with my indigenous history more. My family actually has an incredible ghost story. regarding Catalina Huanca, the Incan princess, and my ancestor who met her.
Awesome. That's really cool.
Thank you. So it's interesting for me to get the chance to kind of reconnect with that part of me. And I can hear like the spirit of my dad just being like, listen, just make it Peruvian. Just make it actually Peruvian, Lucy.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dad.
What else do I want to talk about? Uh, I'm not good at coming up with things to talk about on the fly. I usually have when I'm interviewing someone, I have notes, but I didn't really make notes for this because I mostly just wanted to have a conversation. Uh,
That's totally fine. Do you want to hear the
uh,
ghost story? I could tell you that.
okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you know the conquistadors, right?
Yeah.
So most people know Cortez, but he was mostly focused in Central America, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
But you've probably heard about Pizarro, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was more Latin, like South America. So Pizarro, and my family had this documented. One of the men that he had with him was Pablo del Barco, my ancestor. So when he was setting off, Pizarro drew a line in the sand and he told his men that he would not force anyone to go on this dangerous journey and let only he, every man decides his own fate and let only he who wanted to go. And one of the first men was Pablo del Barco, my ancestor, who crossed that line. And so they went and they were greeted by the Incas who fed them, who showed them how to survive. And now the Incas had a god king, right? A king who they considered a god as well, Ataulpa.
Yeah.
And Pizarro, being a horrible freaking conquistador,
Yeah.
kidnaps after all of this hospitality they're shown by the Incas. He kidnaps their god king Ataulpa. He ties him up, puts him in a room in his camp, and he says, "Well, his young daughter is going to be the leader now. She's inexperienced. She's not going to know what to do." So Pizarro wants to take advantage of this, and he says, "Tell the Incas that they must send me enough gold to fill this room by sunrise, or I will kill their god king." And to be extra sure, because the Incas were fierce warriors, he was like, to be extra sure that they're not going to come and attack his camp, he said, "Don't bring it here. I'm going to send messengers out. I want them to send messengers out to meet each of my messengers and give them the gold, and my messengers will bring it back to camp. And if they do not follow my rules, I will kill him." So word goes out to Catalina Huanca, and she's a young woman. Um, and this is scary. What do? You've been told your dad's been kidnapped. He's going to get killed. What can you do but acquiesce, right? All you
Yeah.
want is to get him back safely. So she does as she's instructed. She sends messengers carrying gold to meet the Spaniards. They pass over the gold, and the Spaniards leave to go to their camp, and the Incan messengers go back to theirs. This goes on for a while. Eventually, the room is getting so filled with gold, it's almost at the top. And Pablo del Barco starts going, "Okay, well, what are you going to do once it's full? Like, the moment we release him, he's going to order his men to attack us for this." And Pizarro, of course, not being a fool, says, "Oh, we're not going to release him." Pizarro was always going to kill him. It makes sense, of course. You
Yeah.
don't want to give them back their leader so they can come and get revenge. But at the same time, what a shady thing to do. And this did
Yeah.
not sit well with Pablo del Barco, who found this incredibly dishonorable. So he escapes from the camp and he goes to find Catalina Huanca, and he tells her what is going on. Of course, he gets caught in prison, and they bring him to her, and he tells her what's going on. And so Catalina Huanca hears all this, and she knows Pizarro thinks she's just a scared little girl, but she can be ruthless. So she turns to her people and she says, "Take your gold, meet their messengers like you were going to, but this time I want you to kill every single one of those messengers and then bury them with the gold they so coveted." And that's exactly what they did. So Pizarro is chilling, like, "All right, guys, time to kill Ataulpa," like, whatever. And they kill him. But he's starting to wonder why his messengers aren't coming back. And like more and more of his men aren't coming back. And eventually someone tells him what the hell's going on. Now that they figured it out, yeah, they're killing us and just burying us with the gold. And so Pizarro realizes it's time to bail. Not before the Incas arrive at the camp. They push the Spaniards away, just repel them. What happens to the room full of gold? Nobody knows. But Catalina Blanca curses all of it and says that no European will ever find that gold unless they are of the bloodline of Pablo del Barco. Fast forward to my grandmother's great uncle, I think it's what it was, Alejandro del Barco. Young man, wealthy, well educated, bored out of his mind. Nothing to do, you know? So he's walking around like he's Brandon Fraser for the Mummy, just looking for trouble or something to do in the open air markets in the bazaar. When he's approached by an old indigenous woman, and she comes up to him all hunched over and she tells him, I have this map for you. If you follow it, you will find gold. And of course, he was an educated man. He was polite, so he's not rude to her, but he thinks, she's a crazy old lady. He's kind of like who's grandma, So he's like, oh, sure. Thank you, grandma. I'm so sure. And she goes, that is but a taste. If you meet me at this place, at this time, I will show you gold beyond your imagination. But you must come alone. Alejandro del Barco doesn't take her seriously. He looks at the map, looks up, and she's gone. And he thinks she must have disappeared in the crowd, whatever. He hopes she gets home okay. But he ain't got nothing to do, so he'll kill some time, sure. He'll follow a treasure map a crazy old lady gave him, why not? And sure enough, when he digs in the place the map tells you to, he finds that old Incan gold. But you know what else he finds?
What?
A dead conquistador that was buried with him. So imagine how you would feel, right? Like this lady just told you this is real gold. It's legit. It's lost Incan gold.
Yeah.
It's only a little of it. And the lady told you she could show you so much more if you meet her in this one place at this one time alone. But there's a skeleton in here. There's a dead body in here. What if this is a trap? What if she's going to kill you and rob you or some shit? What would you do, right?
Yeah.
Seriously, what would you do?
I don't know.
Would you go meet her?
I don't know.
I would. I'd take the risk. I'd be like, whatever. It's worth dying. Who cares? Well, he goes to his brothers, and his brothers come up with the idea of, hey, we'll go with you. One of us will have dogs, like hunting dogs. One of us will have pistols, and one of us will have rifles. We'll wait in the forest so they can't see us, and you go and you meet them. If everything is on the up and up, we won't show up. If things go south, we'll show up and back you up and make sure nothing happens to you. Okay, Alejandro thinks that's a good plan. So they go and they do this. Just as dawn comes upon them, he goes up on this hill, this grassy area with trees all around him. His brother's hiding deeper in the woods. And he goes up on this hill. It's super misty. A strange mist that's just like hanging around. And it's not seasonal at all. But as he goes up this hill, he sees a figure wearing those like colorful tribal prints. So he thinks it's the old woman. But when he gets up to her, she's a beautiful young woman with dark hair and dark eyes. And she looks right at him. And before Alejandro can say a word, she says, I told you to come along. It'll just have to wait for someone further down your bloodline. And then she disappeared in the mist. Alejandro went back to his brothers, who said, sorry, we couldn't see a thing, and this crazy mist just showed up. Like, are you okay? He tells them what happened. They spent forever digging everywhere in that field, everywhere where the original treasure they found was. They never found a single scrap of gold again.
That's an amazing story.
My uncle used to say that I was the chosen one. And if I went back to Peru, I'd definitely find it. So one of these days, I'm going to get a bunch of friends. We're going to go treasure hunting. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, that's a really neat story.
And it shows you my family swears this is a true story, right? And I think elements of the culture like that are things that I hold on to. The
Yeah,
mystery of it all, the courage, the values of like honor, what is honorable, um that's cross-cultural, right? Like Pedro
yeah,
del Barco knew what was dishonorable, and Catalina Wonka agreed. She rewarded him for his honorable actions. And
yeah,
I think that looking at the Emperor's New Groove, even as a comedy story, those elements are still there. Cusco is turned into a llama, but he's like a shitty person, you know?
yeah,
And he has to learn from the peasantry how to be a decent human being. Pacha's a man who has never received anything but trouble from Cusco, and he puts himself out to help this man. And
yeah,
so I look at those elements, and I look at the elements from my family story, and I think even with all the things that are wrong, it's still nice to see some values, some shared values in there. And if
yeah,
it introduced people to my culture like you,
yeah,
then I can't be that angry at it. I can understand why my father was. I can understand why other people are. But anything that gets people talking about it, thinking about it, learning what my people were like, I think is
yeah,
better than them not knowing.
yeah.
I don't know if that bored you. I'm sorry. Thank you for
No,
listening.
it didn't. Um, I I really like that. Yeah. I think I agree with you. Um, all right. Uh,
So, what are the elements of Emperor's New Groove that appeal to you?
um, well, like I already said that it made me interested in the culture. Obviously. Other elements that appeal to me are just it's silly. I like the comedy. Um, I like how it stands out from other Disney movies. It's more of a Warner Brothers almost kind of a cartoon in movie form. Um, I
Yeah, it
think,
does feel way less Disney and more Warner
yeah,
Brothers, doesn't it?
I think, though it definitely would have been better if they had actually cast Peruvian actors. I think the actors they did cast do a good job. Yeah.
I think so too.
Um, and yeah, I just think, and I think it's amazing that it's like it started off and it like flopped, but over the years it has gained this cult following and gained momentum and stuff. I think that's really neat.
So, what about this movie though appealed to you out of all of the Disney films or any films out there at all? Like out of all IPs, there's so many. Why this one? Because you yourself are not Peruvian, right?
Yeah. No. Well, I okay, it started with a cartoon show and I had a crush on one of the characters in the TV show. So
Oh, which
that's
one?
Melina, who is not in the movie. She was made up for the TV show. I have a crush on her. I mean, I had a crush on her. I still like her a lot. Um, that she I revisited the show and really liked her, and then I was like thought the show was funny. I was like, I should probably revisit the movie because I saw the movie when I was a kid and liked it okay. But as I was like a teenager, I thought I should revisit the movie and I really thought it was hilarious. And that made me interested in wanting to just talk about the universe and the world and sort of and to eventually expand on it as well, you know, as I plan to do. Uh
So is Melina gonna be in your movie or in your
yeah,
show that you're making?
in the movie, yeah.
Yeah. What do you want to share what her part is, or is that a surprise to the
Um
audience?
I wrote. Some people know what her part is because I actually wrote an outline a little while back that I posted on Twitter. Um, they don't know because they think I don't want to spoil things, but someone's turned into a llama, but it's not Cusco. It's the actor who's playing him, and no one knows who did it. It can't be Yzma because she's been gone for ages. So there's a mystery element to it, and Melina takes it upon herself first to solve the mystery. She's sort of like an intrepid reporter type character at this point, after having graduated from school. And I think because my outline didn't have enough Kronk in it, I think Kronk is gonna be teaming up with her to help her solve the mystery. So that's the
Oh, that would
basic.
be hilarious
That's
having Kronk
basically
as her sidekick.
her role in the movie. And also she also feels underrepresented because Disney does not really do anything with their characters from their TV shows after the shows are over. They just forget them.
She could have been our
Unless
first Latina princess. Look at
yeah,
this.
unless you're the Lilo and Stitch series, most of the spin-offs Disney just ignores completely after they're over. So it's
Yeah.
sort of a commentary on that as well. Um, and that like none of the directors even know that there was a of the remake, even know that there was a TV show to begin with, so they don't recognize her or anything, and it frustrates her. So solving this mystery, she's hoping, will also help um, her get more recognition as well.
Why do you think Disney obviously pays attention to TV shows when it comes to Marvel, especially lately? Why do you think they just do not care about these like animated TV shows they made, even though so many of them have such passionate followings? Like the Aladdin TV show was very
Yeah,
popular. So was the Little Mermaid one, and they ignored it.
I don't know. The Marvel is relatively new, which partly explains it. So it has a different group of people working on it. I think the show most they must not have made a lot of money. Is my only guess. Of course, you can't. What determines what makes something money is how much toys you sell. If you're not making toys, of course you're not
Then
going to
how
sell
can it?
toys.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
But
you're not
that's the
wrong.
explanation for most of the Disney shows not having any toys. Is well, they didn't sell enough toys, so but are not doing well. They didn't sell enough toys, but they don't make the toys in the first place. They don't make any merch. The only spin-off show that has merch is maybe the Rapunzel show because it's more recent. And Lilo and Stitch, the series, really took off, and they made lots of merch for that.
So do you think
Uh,
this might be changing, seeing how the Rapunzel show got the attention and love? Do you think that now they're gonna maybe give their animated series more
uh,
importance?
Over time, yeah, I don't think it's going to happen all at once, but maybe over time, yeah, I could see that happening.
I think that would be nice. Personally, I love TV shows and long form storytelling like that a lot. Like I love movies too, but
Yeah,
there's more room for character exploration in TV shows.
yeah, that was one of the catch 22s of the Emperor's New School. There was lots of exploration, but there was also Cusco just being a jerk over and over again. But they explored other
The same
characters.
thing over and over.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they explored other and well, usually the lessons Cusco learned was different, but they all had the same theme of don't be a jerk. It was just
Don't be a
different
jerk, bro.
different variations of like don't do this, don't do that thing that a jerk would do, as opposed to the movie where it's more broad, like don't be a jerk. Um, but yeah,
So is this movie, are you envisioning it being like animated or an audio drama or live action?
well, I mean, in a perfect world, yeah, it would be a hybrid of live action and animation, but
Like Who Framed Roger Rabbit
yeah, but
or
I don't
Benji the
think I can
Butthead?
afford that, and I don't know how much trouble I get in for that. So I may just make it in animatic form once the script is all written and stuff, and I can get some voice actors to do uh
Are you
audition.
going to try to cast primarily Latino actors or indigenous actors? Or are you just going to try to get whoever you can get?
I would like to certainly for the live action characters in quotations. I'm definitely going to want to get Latino actors, and I'm thinking about it for the animated one for the cartoon characters too.
That is
Um,
interesting, actually. Casting Latino and indigenous actors for the people that are supposed to be live action and
yeah,
casting whoever for the cartoon. That's actually a really interesting concept.
yeah. Well, I mean, you want that to be what Disney does with their remakes. It isn't always what they do, but if they were going to
Yeah,
remake it, you would want them to cast actual Peruvians in the live action one.
right,
Uh,
exactly.
so you would hope in an ideal world if they were doing that, that's what they would do. So that's why I was like, yeah, definitely the characters who are supposed to be action actors playing the characters in New Groove are going to be like there's going to be like the CEO is probably going to be a white guy.
I think the concept is such a good concept, and I'm so frustrated that you can't just like pitch this to them.
Yeah, I am too, honestly. But like, you have to like be somebody to pitch something to Disney, uh, or they'll
You
come to
don't have
you.
to be someone, you have to know someone.
You have to know someone, but like you have to know people within people within people. Because I know lots of people, but I don't think I know anyone that high on the scale of pitching things to companies. And I don't know if now that I've talked about on the internet, I'd be able to be allowed to pitch it anyways. I don't know how any of that works. So
Disney is a very unique beast
yeah,
in how they choose to do things, though.
yeah.
But I think with this recent rash of them making live action remakes and really doubling down on nostalgia and properties we grew up with, I feel like this would be something they'd be interested in. And it really fits the vibe of Emperor's New Groove a lot.
Yeah, I think so too. But I mean, it's my idea, so uh, it's good to have other people telling me, yeah, I think this is good too, because I, you know, am insecure, like most people probably are.
Especially artists.
Yeah, so it's always good to have feedback and have people saying, no, this is actually you got something good here. It's always great to hear that. Yeah. Um, who's your favorite character in the Emperor's New Groove? I thought I'd ask.
Oh gosh. I mean, it's hard for it not to be Cusco, but I do really love Yzma.
Yeah,
I
they're
just find
both
her
kind of. I feel like they sort of can't. You can't have one without the other. Very. I mean, sometimes you can, but in general, especially in the original movie, you can't have one without the other because if you have, there's nowhere for Cusco to go if Yzma's not there. I mean, every character in that movie
I just
influences
like
Cusco.
I like how petty her complaint is and how
Yeah,
insane her reaction is. Like, it's so funny to me. Like, she's like, oh, I don't have enough power. I don't have enough influence. I don't have enough everything, even though I can do whatever I want basically at any time. It
yeah,
isn't enough credit and glory. I need even more. And so then
yeah,
she, like, for such a petty complaint, she, like, he tries to poison the king, turns him into
yeah,
a llama, and then can't even be bothered to kill the llama. So she sends someone else to do it.
yeah. And of course, Eartha Kitt's performance in that is brilliant.
Oh yeah. No, she's flawless.
Yeah. Um, my favorite character, I've already said my favorite character in the TV show was. My favorite character in the movie is probably Kronk. I still hope to someday get Patrick Warburton on this podcast. I did go to a con and fist bump him in
Have
July.
what if maybe if you can't get him, have you tried his son, Talon Warburton?
No, I have not, but I do know he follows you. I
He's
do know you're.
super cool and he does a pitch perfect impression of his dad. Let me tell
Yeah,
you. I was jokingly saying, like, oh man, Patrick Warburton should have been cast as DK instead of Seth Rogen. And then he like did a video of like his secret to doing a Patrick Warburton impression. It was like spot on.
I
He's a
hear I
super
can do
cool
a pretty
guy.
decent one too. Right, the poison for Cusco, the poison chosen especially to kill Cusco. Cusco's poison.
That's actually really good.
Poison. Yeah, I've been told that. But I mean, all over the internet, there's lots of people who can do great Patrick Warburton impressions. So I don't want people to think that I'm like the only one.
Well, no. I mean, with voice actors, everyone has impressions of
Yeah,
it's still fun to hear.
yeah,
I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only one in the world that does a Zula, but
yeah.
or a
Um,
Catwoman. Meow.
yeah. Yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Whatever you want to, I'm just happy to be your guest. Is there anything I can answer for you?
Yeah. How did you get into voice acting?
I was an actor since I was a little kid. I was doing theater since I was teeny tiny. But I'm very short. Back then it was rougher too, because back then they wanted everyone to look white. So they were always trying to make me look as white as possible, which was
Ugh.
frustrating. It's different now, thank goodness.
Yeah.
But I was also short. And so they could get away with not casting an actual child and casting like a teenager that looked younger, they would. And that got really old real fast. You want to start growing as an actor. You want to do more than just I can't but you that.
Yeah.
And you want to like act. And so I kind of moved more into voice acting. And especially as my disabilities got really, really bad, my physical health really deteriorated. It was just easier to do stuff voice acting wise rather than the physicality of stage and the physical demand
Yeah.
of it. But voice acting is tough too. You don't
Yeah.
have the energy to feed off your fellow actors. It all just has to come from you.
Yeah.
They can't see your facial expressions or your hands, so everything has to be communicated with your voice. And that can be really challenging, but you know what? I enjoy it. I enjoy that no matter, even though I'm a tiny little mixed race girl, I can play a giant mean villain or like an over the top whoever. I can play whatever. It doesn't matter. I can be a monster, I can be a child, I can be an adult, I could be an ancient being. It doesn't matter what I look like.
Yeah. Yeah. That is awesome. Um, and I think now might be a good time for
Plus
you
I
to
got
talk.
your voice. I got to voice Azula for an ad once, and that, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah, you got to do a commercial for, was that for the DVD or
it was for to promote book 3. So they did it for San Diego Comic Con when book 3 was airing. And I wrote the first two, and I voiced Azula for the second one. The first one was the one that they really wanted. And then
yeah.
the second one, we made a second one, and I voiced Azula for it. I was like 19 at the time. I was homeless.
Yeah,
It was wild.
how did that happen? I'm curious to find out.
I trolled a message board super creatively. That's legitimately what happened. Um, but it was a crazy experience, for better or for worse. It was really hard writing for a big company because the rules about what you were allowed to write and what you weren't,
Yeah.
even when it was innocuous, surprised me. I was young, I was naive. But I'm so glad I did it. And I think as an adult, I have so much more appreciation than I did as a child.
Yeah. And that brings me to you want to talk a little bit about the project you're working on now that you can talk about? Like,
Sure. I'm currently working on a project called the Book 4 Restoration Project. If you're a fan of Avatar The Last Airbender, if you liked my Azula voice there, we're actually doing our best to bring a Book 4 air. We're using both the original comics or the official comics and original content that we have artists drawing. It's all being orchestrated. So fully orchestrated. We're not just grabbing the tracks from the show. We are remaking them, replaying them, and making new ones, making the head composer even recreated the Sungi horn, which is an instrument they invented for the show by using audio convolution to algorithmically fuse the sound of a trombone and a double reeded instrument called a duduk. That's what that haunting instrument you hear in the Blue Spirit theme is. It doesn't exist. And how they did this was confusing because we had no idea how you're supposed to use audio convolution to do that. We did a lot of research. We couldn't find any documentation about it. But our head composer, James A. Riley, just one day showed up and said, I did it. And he did. It's incredible. I don't think I've ever heard anyone else manage to replicate that, but he did. To show you the kind of level our musicians are at, but also our artists, incredible artists like Rick Orange, did some of those comic panels that you can see in the trailer of the original content. And they look just like, we have Vago, who's one of the biggest, fan artists in the community, who looks just like the same style, looks official, if not better. I love her art. They're phenomenal. All of them are phenomenal. The voice acting cast, most of them have been in video games or in anime or in cartoons, just also incredible talent. And we have audio engineers, we have video engineers putting it all together. And I have to give credit to my co-showrunner and director, Ryoma Ishizuka, who also plays Aang, and my co-voice director, Anthony Rodriguez. It wouldn't be possible without them.
yeah, and the actually this is what inspired me to make more Emperor's New Groove fan content, was seeing the first episode of book 4, being like, oh, people can do this, I can do stuff with the Emperor's New Groove.
Just create.
Yeah.
Just create. Don't even worry if it's perfect, because it'll never be perfect. And you
Yeah.
know what? If you make something that sucks, I've made plenty of shit that sucked before I started making stuff that was good. So who
Yeah.
cares? Just
Yeah.
make things. Just make things.
Yeah, so you can look for book 4 on YouTube, I believe,
Yes.
for Restoration Project, and you can follow them on Twitter as well.
At Book 4 Air. Yes.
Yes. And also you can keep an eye out for updates on that requel that we're working on. Which is, as I already explained what a requel was. I don't need to explain again. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I hope you have a great evening.
You too. All right.
Bye.
Bye.